Hello everyone and welcome to another beautiful game from round 6 of the Niksic tournament of 1983 that will most certainly improve your Sunday. It is Garry Kasparov versus Bozidar Ivanovic. Kasparov, as we've already said, is preparing for his World Chess Championship match against Anatoly Karpov set to begin in 1984, and he's doing incredibly well in the tournament. Bozidar Ivanovic is the underdog in this tournament. He's the local player also from Montenegro, and he's still undefeated. This is round 6. He's undefeated. He does not have a win, but he has 5 draws, and 5 very, very nice draws. In round 1, he drew Nikolic. In round 2, an 18-move draw against Mikhail Tal. Then in round 3, a draw against Anthony Miles. Then in round 4, a draw against Ulf Andersson. And in round 5, a draw against Jan Timan. Now he faces Kasparov. He's the former Yugoslavian champion. He won the champion of Yugoslavia. It was shared first in 1973. And was already a grandmaster for a couple of years in 1983. So he is very strong, and as you'll see, Kasparov just does not allow you to make a mistake. And to make matters even more interesting, they are playing a line that was played by Kasparov's legendary mentor, the former world champion Mikhail Botvinnik. Some of you may know this, maybe you don't know this, but Botvinnik has mentored Kasparov from age 10 to 15, from 1973 to 1978. And it wasn't sort of a one-on-one mentoring. Kasparov enrolled in Botvinnik Chess School, and it was, there were classes, and then it were group classes. It wasn't a one-on-one, and then you had homework, you had to solve puzzles, and then Botvinnik would analyze some of the games that were played by some of the players, and then, you have to improve on this, you have to improve on that. And after 5 years, Kasparov was already a very, very strong master and did not require further tutoring from the school, and then, he moved on. But yeah, they play a tournament, they play a game. Botvinnik played against another legendary world champion, Jose Raul Capablanca, in the again legendary Avro tournament of 1938. I know I said legendary a couple of times, but it really is, and they really are. And although it was maybe one of Capablanca's worst performances, it was also one of his last tournaments. He played one more tournament in I don't know what was the play, Margot or something. Can't remember the name, but he played one more tournament after the Avro tournament in 1939, where Paul Keres won. Capablanca got second place, and that was his last tournament. But they are following this game, and I thought this was very cool for you guys to know. And I will also mention where they deviate. So Kasparov with white opens with d4, and they're gonna play a very, very theoretical line that is still being played today, only today with an improvement, obviously, on this game. So knight to f6, we have pawn to c4, e6, and knight to c3. Very rare for young Kasparov to allow someone to go for the Nimzo-Indian defense, but here I guess he thought it was a nice opportunity to really strike, as he wanted a point against Ivanovic with white. So bishop to b4, Bozidar goes for the Nimzo-Indian defense. We have e3, c5, and pawn to a3. Okay, bishop captures, we have b captures, castles kingside, and bishop to d3. This is all very well known. Even today, we have pawn to d5, c captures, we have e captures, and knight to e2. We have pawn to b6, and this is the exact position Mikhail Botvinnik had against Jose Raul Capablanca in the Avro tournament of 1938, where Botvinnik continued with castles. Interestingly, castles is still the top move recommended by the engine even in 2025. Then Capablanca went something like bishop a6, they traded bishops, captures, Botvinnik played bishop b2, and it's that legendary game. I've covered it some 7 years ago on the channel. I probably should make a remake of it. Probably will after this video, just really that game should really be shown more often, not like every 7 years. And here Kasparov deviates from that game with pawn to f3. Okay, obviously he's preparing some sort of an e4 in the future, f3, sort of a Kmov variation against the Nimzo-Indian. We have rook to e8 and castles kingside, bishop to e6, offering to trade bishops, and knight to g3. We have bishop captures on d3 and queen captures on d3. We have knight to c6 and bishop to b2. So okay, very nicely played. And now comes pawn to c4. Nowadays, more popular is pawn to h5, but c4 is still played. Top moves here are pawn to c4, pawn to h5, and also rook to c8, and it's perfectly fine. Sometimes you even see a c captures on d4, although it's much, much rarer, as it's a very, very analyzed line, and c captures on d4 is something the engine says that can be played, but doesn't really do all that much for black. So in the game, c4 was played, Kasparov played queen to d2, and now h5 is an absolute must. You absolutely have to play this. Point being that you are fighting against white's ability to execute e4. If you allow white to play e4, then you will be much worse. And you have to play something like h5, and then the game continues. And if white insists on executing e4, you'll just kick away the knight and then, continue the game. There's no e4 happening at any point, as it's very nicely covered. But after queen to d2, Bozidar played queen to d7. Okay, connecting rooks, bringing the queen into the game, and Kasparov played rook a to e1. And now is very, very hard to actually stop pawn to e4. He did play pawn to h5 now, which sort of looks like it stops e4, but it doesn't, because of a devastating attack, and that's exactly what Kasparov plays. Kasparov plays pawn to e4. And now the question is, what can you do here? Can you just play pawn to h4 right away, kick away the knight? Well, now the knight comes to f5, and it's not that clear. If you capture on e4, then look at this, knight captures on g7, and that knight on f6 is just ridiculous. You're going to play queen g5 check, you're going to pick up the knight, and black's defenses are shattered. Another thing after pawn to e4, how about capturing on e4 right away? Also loses on the spot. Look at this, f captures on e4, and now whatever you do doesn't really matter. h4, knight to f5, knight captures on e4, and now queen to f4. And you're threatening the knight, and the knight has no squares. You cannot go to c5, cannot go to d6. It's covered twice. If you go to f6, then a nice simple queen g5 threatens checkmate. If you play g6, then you can just trade. For example, captures, and now knight to h6 with check, king g7. You're going to play captures, and after captures, rook f4, and there's no defense against rook to h4 checkmate. So that's all there is. You can give one check, then king f2, and then you resign, as rook h4 will be checkmate. So after e4, Bozidar played g6. Seems like everything is under control and that everything is perfectly fine, but I'm not going to tell you anything more. I might spoil your Sunday. Feel free to pause the video and try to find the absolute best way to continue the attack for Garry while I give you a couple of seconds. So the absolute best move, and the one that exploits the dark squares to the fullest, or rather black's weakening of the dark squares, is bishop to c1. Spectacular move. I mean, you just don't expect it. The bishop here looks like a pawn. It doesn't really do anything. It's not going here, it's not going here. Although, if you remember Botvinnik versus Capablanca, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Knight to h7. It's hard to really stop queen coming to h6, and you don't really have any better options. So knight to h7 was played, and now queen to h6, followed by rook to e6, trying to set up some sort of a defensive perimeter, because if you don't go knight to h7, what else are you playing? You would love to go somewhere like with the queen to f8, but you cannot go to e7 because we capture, and then the queen is attacked. Also, you lose the knight. And if you go queen to d6 to go f8, again, not that great. So rook to e6 was played, and now the question is how to continue the attack. There's only one way to continue this in a winning fashion. So again, have at it. Improve your Sunday. Why not? Now the f5 square is no longer guarded. Pawn to f4, preparing pawn to f5, and again, nothing to be done here. And to give you a quick tour on what happens, if you play d captures on e4, just f5, and after rook to f6, or you capture and then knight captures, also is terrible for black, bishop to g5. And now you have to capture, otherwise the rook will just be captured. Knight captures, we have queen captures, and now queen to d8, defending the rook. Here is going to go knight captures on e4. And now, of course, you cannot capture. Rook captures on f5, the g-pawn is pinned. And after rook to d6, hoping that knight captures rook, of course not. Queen h6. and you just go for the checkmate. Rook to d7, captures, knight f6 check, and that's it. You either give up the queen or king to f7, and then knight e8 opens up a discovery, king to g8, and rook to f8 will be checkmate. So, yeah, not really best. Knight to e7 was played in the game, even though d captures on e4 was the top move recommended by the engine. It doesn't work. Knight e7, and now pawn to f5. G captures, and now queen captures on h5 by Kasparov. D captures on e4, and knight captures on f5. Okay, knight captures and rook captures. Seems like Kasparov lost a couple of attackers, and maybe the attack slows down. Rook a to e8, and now Kasparov again with the absolute best move, rook to e3. Get the other rook into the attack as well. And the problem is, let's say we go king h8. You just get the king off of the g file. The problem is, it's just not happening. Rook f7 is coming, and there's nothing you can do about it. Let's say pawn to f6, you stop that, d5. And after rook to e5, you can even trade captures, queen g6, now threatening queen g8 checkmate. So rook e8, you are covering both squares that white is trying to deliver checkmate on. Also knight covers f6, but now bishop h6, threatening bishop to g7. And after knight to g5, forcing white to get rid of another attacker, you will simply capture, and after rook captures, that's it. You're either going rook h5, which will either checkmate or force black to give up the queen. Black cannot defend with the queen because the rook is hanging, and if you move the rook to control h7, then queen to g8 will be checkmate. So after rook e3, rook to d6 was played, but it does not help. Kasparov just played rook to g3 check, and he was in this position on move 26 that Bozidar Ivanovic resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So after 5 very, very nicely fought draws, Ivanovic loses the first game against none other than Kasparov with the white pieces. But I mean, okay, you really can't blame anyone for losing to Kasparov with black. And the point is that rook g6 that was planned will be met with captures, and captures with check, king h8, and now a simple rook f7, and you get checkmated on h7. So yeah, terrible misplay of the famous Botvinnik versus Capablanca line of the Avro tournament of 1938. Yeah, I think the place where Capablanca played the last tournament was Margate in 1939, but I will check in the next video. But yeah, here after bishop to b2 was played, you have to go for h5, or you can go c4 and then pawn to h5, but h5 is a must if you want to play this line, and this is a line that is still played today, even in 2025. It's perfectly fine for black, and you know, offers some great counterplay. But inclusion of queen d7, it's hard to say what Ivanovic had in mind. Probably he prepared some sort of a crazy line for Kasparov, but Kasparov, you know, just neutralized it like an engine. Rook a to e1, and then pawn to e4, and Ivanovic just fell apart. So it was a beautiful display of just how well taught Kasparov was, and if you play the line he knew it better than you. If you play the line he didn't know, or maybe he knew that queen d7, you know, was some sort of a mistake, and he already had everything prepared. It is very hard to, you know, pinpoint the exact extent of Kasparov's knowledge, you know, regarding this line in 1983. I think it was a little bit of both, but yeah, completely obliterated poor Bozidar in this game. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I think we should actually, I mean, I will cover the Avro tournament in its entirety, but just for fun, since we've covered this game, I could show the legendary Botvinnik versus Capablanca game, as if you haven't seen that game, the move that was played is one of those legendary moves. There are maybe 10 of them in the entire chess history. This game has one of them. So yeah, we could show it. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I hope it improved your Sunday. I would like to thank Tomasz Pasternak, Alan Chamberno, Sashadri Subramania, Nick Lin, and Paul Hinamund for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.